Hey guys, hope you're all doing well. Tommy here from Two Angry Gamers, standing in for Jack as he continues his recovery from his operation. Oh, poor sausage. Today, we're going to take a look at a brand spanking new game called Vigor that will definitely tickle your pickle if you're into survival games. And there's one particular survival game, infamous you might say, not so popular anymore. And it kind of used to be the hottest thing since sliced bread kind of game. You might say that it's quite related to. Let's take a look. So you may or may not be familiar with a little game called DayZ. And if you haven't heard of that, perhaps Armour rings a familiar bell. But who am I kidding? Everyone's heard of DayZ and the legacy it's set about building. Bohemia Games is the developer of both those aforementioned games, and DayZ, of course, started life as a mod for Armour. Now, though, Bohemia are working on a new game exclusive to Xbox One called Vigor. And if you have an Xbox and you're an Xbox insider, you can head to the app and download the beta right now. The game is due to launch next year exclusively on Xbox One, although I have a feeling it may eventually release on PC too. Ooh. So that's all well and good and tasty, but what exactly is Vigor? Is it another DayZ? Is it a battle royale game? Give me strength? Well, the answer is probably something in between. And Bohemia are keen to stress that this is a very different experience than you perhaps are used to from current battle royale type games. In fact, after I played it, to be honest, the best comparison I can think of is Escape from Tarkov. It's very similar to Tarkov in how about you go getting your loot. More on that shortly. The game is set in 90s Scandinavia, after a nuke has gone off in Central Europe and Scandinavia remains the last safe zone. Lovely. Norway serves as a really picturesque backdrop that, while looking beautiful, is now a cutthroat land of survival, where only the cunning and the ruthless make it out alive. It's a bit much, I know, but that's how Bohemia described it, so let's roll with it. The game works a bit differently to most. When you load into multiplayer, you enter your shelter. This is your safe zone, your safe space, and it's here that you can craft weapons and ammo, and then equip those weapons for battle or try them out on the gun range. You can even upgrade your shelter itself, which can give you benefits such as a shorter weapon crafting time or more materials generation. Upstairs in your shelter, you also have a wardrobe where you can customize your character's visuals, changing your base uniform, your hat, gloves, and your backpack. Eventually, there will be customizable gestures and sprays in the game, but they're not currently in this build as of now. When you're all prepared and you want to head out into the wilderness, you can go to the map in the shelter and pick an engagement. You start life as an outlander looking to build resources and survive. This is where the game will be relatively familiar to you if you ever played Escape from Tarkov, because the principle is basically the same. You pick one of the engagements or levels, which are all in different regions and have a different visual style. Then when you load in, you're in a multiplayer game that consists of up to 16 players in total. Each player must compete with each other to find loot around the map, and like I said before, although that does sound very Battle Royale-esque, there are some fundamental differences with Vigor to try and set it apart. Firstly, you can leave at any time through the various exit points on the map, and when you do leave, you take with you the gear that you found along your way. Much like Escape from Tarkov though, if you die, you lose what you had on you, but you also do get some materials for your trouble, so you don't get nothing. It's not, everyone's a winner. This means that before you head out from your shelter, you need to remember perhaps it won't be best to take all your medical supplies or all your ammo or your best guns, because if you do get killed, you are going to lose it. It's all about risk-reward. So during an engagement, at some point, an airdrop will be dropped from a plane flying overhead. Each player is going to want to head to that airdrop and try and claim it and escape with it. If you do escape with it, you get a sort of loot box that you can open back at your shelter with all sorts of goodies in it. The catch to this is that when you pick up the airdrop, you are pinged on other players' radars to let them know that the airdrop has been taken and to give them a rough idea of where you are, so you've got to be careful. The airdrop is also marked in red on your radar when it drops in, so that if it disappears, you know someone's taken it. The HUD itself is actually pretty sparse, and that's by design. There is no kill feed, and there is little information on your screen at any given time. You have a radar for direction at the top of your screen, and you can access a map at any given moment should you require it. The ammo for your current weapon will pop up when you ADS, but will disappear if you aren't using your gun. Speaking of which, there are numerous weapons in the game, ranging from your starter pistol, the Luger, to AK-47s, Mosin Nagants, and there's a few melee weapons as well. If you do find a weapon you want in the world, you may face a tough decision on what to drop, as you don't have endless space. The problem, though, comes down to ammo. You may have a gun that you really want, but it has no ammo for it, and you don't want to swap it out because it could leave you vulnerable if you encounter another player. That's the risk you may want to take. Visually, the game looks pretty nice. The environments are gorgeous, although I have to admit the animations perhaps need a little bit of work. The character model feels rigid and floaty, but that's something that could be worked on over time. In terms of performance, the game ran mostly fine, but I did notice some frame drops here and there, which is a bit surprising as I'm not entirely sure the game's actually running at 1080p. At least it didn't feel that way. Some of the visual elements were a little bit blurred, making me think it was running at perhaps 900p, but I could be wrong. I could be. So now let's talk about the gunplay, which has to be said felt a little odd. It didn't really feel like I was getting much feedback when I was shooting at enemies whatsoever. I found it a bit awkward to know if I'd got a hit or been hit. It was all a little bit messy. I did also experience a little touch of lag when it came to some gunfights, but we've got to remember that this is currently in beta and only available on the Xbox Early Access program, so it's got a lot of work to be done. The goal currently is to release it next February, and when it does release, it's going to be free to play. I wondered to myself, though, how popular a game will this be in the long term? Escape from Tarkov has a dedicated player base who love the game and the tension that it can bring, so I've no doubt that there'll be a group of players that will flock to this game, especially considering it's a console exclusive. That being said, I think it's way too early to judge right now because the game has a long way to go before it's in a state where we can properly assess its longevity. I think it needs sharpening up in a number of areas, like the movement system is fine to a certain extent, but it feels way too rigid. You can crouch, go prone, vault, so the core mechanics are all in there, they just need tidying up. When you're firing your gun as well, you can actually use third-person aim or aim down the sight, so you've got variety there. Often I found myself trying to vault over rocks though, and just jumping up and down instead, like some kind of mad wasp. The environment, however, has to be said, looked really nice. Some great visual elements and good audio and weather effects, so it really set off the levels, so lots of potential for some dynamic environments. Interesting to note though, this game actually runs on the Unreal Engine and not the engine that powers DayZ. This isn't just a DayZ clone or anything like that. It's a separate game already on an established engine, so one would hope, of course, that would mean a lot of the problems that have plagued previous Bohemia games should not raise their heads here, in theory at least. Those of you who still follow DayZ will know all about the engine-related problems that have plagued the game for a long time now. And so perhaps that's why Bohemia decided to go down a different route with this game rather than utilising one of their in-house engines. The problem they will have though is that while this game is very different to DayZ, and the developers within Bohemia may not even be the same ones that worked on DayZ, there is naturally going to be a lot of apprehension when they bring out another survival-based game, after what players have gone through over the past few years with DayZ, and of course now DayZ standalone. It's going to take quite a bit to win over some players, I think, but perhaps because DayZ is a PC shooter, maybe Vigor will bring in a different crowd of console players that perhaps aren't familiar with the history of the company. Either way, Vigor has an uphill battle to not only get players' attention, but to keep it as well. I expect that the game will change and improve quite a lot over the next 6 to 9 months, and maybe the fact that the game is going to be free to play will help its success. Time will tell. And that's all for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed the video, and do let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Feel free to plug yourself here wherever you want. No, you're alright, Jack. If you liked it, leave a like. If you didn't, a dislike. Subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.